What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 2022 Fantasy Points Town Hall here at the website, fantasypoints.com. Of course, youtube.com/fantasy points. I am John Hansen. We have already done most of the divisions today in the final installment of the 2022 Town Hall. We're going to do the AFC South and the AFC West. I am John Hansen. I don't know if I mentioned that. We've got our guy, Adam Caplan, Mr. Greg Cosell, Wes Huber, Scott Barrett, Joe Dolan, Tom Brawley, our guy, Graham Barfield on assignment today, I believe, and our guy, Ben Kukanis, on the other side of the glass. And let's get to it without any further ado. What is this? What is this? This is we used to call this a little bit of a gathering, if you will, where we would all convene in person way before the pandemic. Greg and Adam and I all live in the same general area in the Philadelphia area. And Joe and Tom lived in the area as well. We would get together for a whole day after the draft, go over all the teams and everything we think, and get Adam's insider information, Greg's film study. And then, of course, we handle the fantasy lifting. We kind of went virtual with this thing back in 2020. And with the pandemic, we put it live on YouTube. So let's get to it right now. Of course, on the website too, on the live stream area of the website. We are doing the AFC South, guys. So we start with the Houston Texans. And Greg, I will start with you. And, a lot of people thought at the end of the season that the Texans, with a couple of number one picks, might be in the quarterback business. Maybe they will be after this year. Maybe they're going year to year with it. But I know you were pretty impressed with Davis Mills and his tape. So talk about what you saw. What were the strengths and what are the concerns? I know protection and protecting the man is probably the biggest concern with Davis Mills, Greg, but what'd you say?
I actually thought John Davis Mills played pretty well last year, given the really difficult situation he was put in. Obviously, he was not drafted to be the starter year one, but I thought he handled himself extremely well, playing on what was a really bad team for the most part on both sides of the ball. So he really was put in a lot of really tough situations for a rookie quarterback. I thought he showed a lot of poise, a lot of composure. He throws the ball well. He's tall in the pocket. He got rid of the knee brace that he wore his last year at Stanford. So while he's never going to be mobile in the way we think of the true mobile second reaction players, he did show enough functional mobility that can be a part of his game. I thought they did a good job addressing the O-line. Obviously, they drafted Kenyon Green with their first pick, who I'm sure will step right in and start at left guard. Tunsil will be back. They do like Titus Howard at right tackle. They think that's his best position. And, of course, they drafted one of my favorite receivers in this entire draft class, John Mechie, in the second round. So I think this is an interesting offense. And just to turn to the running backs, I'll be very intrigued to see what kind of volume Dameon Pierce gets. I think he's a good back. I know some think he's a true foundation back. He may well be in their offense. But I think they have a pretty good collection of backs, John, that can all do different things.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot of NFL insider information on the Texans, Adam. Do you? Because otherwise we could just kind of chop it up on these players. Do you have any tidbits, any nuggets of note here? They're the Texans, so they're kind of like New England South, so you don't get a lot of information out of that.
There's really nothing. Yeah, we all know what it looks like. It's just a matter of when will Mechie be ready. They don't know that. Surgery went well, as I understand it. We know what they've done to upgrade the offensive line. They'll have a little bit better depth, but it's not great. But the line will be better. Though I know some people in the league are not A.J. Cann fans, but that's another subject for another time. I still think Pierce will wind up taking this job. I can't tell you it's going to be week 1, 7, 15. I don't know that. They don't know that. But once we get to training camp, I think he's going to show out, and I believe he'll wind up being a pretty big piece of their running game.
Yeah, Greg, the guys can chime in if they have any questions after we're done here on Dameon Pierce. We're talking a little bit more fantasy here. Well, we're talking both because, what you seem a little skeptical about his ability to be a volume back. I know he wasn't there in college. Then again, the head coach was I believe relieved of his duties at the end of the year. I don't know if that what that was actually, but I watched him in person at the Senior Bowl, and I kind of thought, you know how names kind of come to you. I saw a little Frank Gore there, and just in terms of the toughness and the energy and the velocity, I saw him do pass protection drills. I thought it was incredible. Very good receiver, Greg.
Yeah.
Yet you do seem a little skeptical, and I know he's never done it, but what are your thoughts on the prospects of him being a foundation or a primary back in the NFL?
Yeah, I went back and forth on that as I watched his tape. There's no question that he's compact, he's low to the ground, he's very measured, he's methodical. The way I always describe backs like that, they're professional runners. I think he's that kind of back. He had a natural feel. I think he could be. I just was uncertain. But I think in this particular backfield, I agree with Adam. I think in this particular backfield, as time goes on, he will end up being the number one back. Now, John, I don't know what that means in terms of number of carries on a weekly basis. I think much of that depends on when Mitchie is ready as well, because they do not have a bad receiving core. If Mechie is what I believe he is, I do not believe they have a bad receiving core, and I'm very curious how they would structure their offense. Pep Hamilton is now their offensive coordinator, so I don't feel like I have a good handle on that as we speak today.
Yeah, Adam, you could speak on Pep because I think the book on him is a little unproven as a play caller and an offensive coordinator, but the guy might be some sort of savant, like a quarterback whisperer, especially young quarterbacks.
Yeah, he's done a good job. He did a good job at Stanford, Indy, Houston with Davis Mills last year. Apparently, one of the reasons why they promoted Hamilton from quarterbacks coach to OC is the relationship that he developed, from what I understand, with Davis Mills. So that's good. They'll keep that going, and they'll be patient with Mills. It's not like they signed some veteran who could take the job from Kyle Allen. We know it's just a backup. He'll ever be. Not a bad one. But Mills will be their starter, and they'll go from there. And now, in terms of volume of pass game, that'll be more determined about when Pierce is ready and how much volume they think he can handle, and how their offensive line holds up. There are a lot of changes on their offense here. You add Mechie, and we'll see what he looks like in training camp when he's allowed to practice. Nico Collins is a full-time player now, as a full-time starter. I look forward to seeing him. And this revamped offensive line, they've got some changes here, so there are a lot of moving parts.
Greg, do you see maybe like a Pierce, who didn't run very well, by the way, not that it matters, but in terms of the 40, do you see Pierce and maybe Marlon Mack being? I could see it being a little bit of a 1-2 punch and maybe even a third with Burkhead, but I could see Pierce leading the way, perhaps. I mean, do you see Marlon Mack and Pierce being a decent 1-2 punch? Do they complement each other at all?
Yeah, I mean, look, they signed Mack. I think that they'll start. Mack does have some sort of a proven track record, obviously. So I think that they'll, the Pierce thing, we don't know the answer to that. I think there's no way to know, John, at this point in time. Pierce is a 4th-round pick, but backs are drafted later. He has grinder sustaining traits. There's absolutely no question about that. It all depends on how they see their pass game in the context of their offense. Because as I said, they do have pretty good weapons. I mean, even their backups at this point are guys who played in the league and have had success. Philip Dorsett, Chris Conley, Chris Moore. I don't know where Deshaun Hamilton stands at this point. There was a time in Denver it looked like he was a solid 3 type. So they do have receivers on this roster.
Do you see Pierce? I know we're spending a lot of time on this, but this is pretty important stuff. I mean, we've got some, talented young players in a position for massive roles. Do you think he's more grinder than make you miss guy? Like, I guess so, right? More grinder than a laterally elusive guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. He's a toughness runner. I mean, He's got play strength. He's got contact balance. He's, to me, if you really wanted kind of a comparison, he's a lowercase Javonte Williams.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, guys,
it's actually not bad. Honestly,
it's not bad at all.
It's Some sort of a compliment. Okay.
Does anybody have any other thoughts, data points, positions on Dameon Pierce? All right. Okay. Let's move on.
Covered just about everything, John.
What's that?
You covered everything there with him.
Yeah. Greg, I didn't realize you liked Mechie that much.
I love Mechie.
I know you liked him, but I kind of attached myself to this kid myself because I watched him play, when they were, when he was balling back in the year before. Then I met him
this year too, John. He caught 96 balls. I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The last 2 years.
It's just that Jamison Williams was the more explosive player and got more of the highlights and more of the ink. I think John Mechie is just a really strong professional receiver. I've compared him when I watched him last summer with his 2020 tape. The first name that came to my mind, and there was nothing about his 2021 tape that changed my mind. The first guy that came to my mind was Robert Woods.
Oh, for sure. Wes, how awesome. And you were there. Wes was there. And so they bring Mechie out to me and I'm like, you're my guy, dude. I'm like, you're my guy. How awesome was Mechie though, Wes? Just personally, one of the best personalities I've ever encountered from a rookie.
Yeah, definitely. It wasn't what I was expecting, for a kid playing at Alabama, just really down to earth and really calm
really calm.
Yeah, and he looked like a 12-year-old kid, but just in the face, and he just came across very mature. Just really impressed me.
Yeah, Greg, I asked him about what is it with these guys? They're all technicians and really good route runners, and he agreed, of course. And it's kind of a thing that they all it's like a thing. The Alabama guys are precision players, and he fit right into that, right?
Well, that's coaching, John. That's coaching.
Yeah. But he can line up anywhere, right, Greg? I mean, him and Cooks can be interchangeable.
He's not purely explosive, but because he's a really good route runner and understands how to run routes, there is a vertical element to his game, but you're not drafting him as a vertical receiver.
So I think we all look at, Nico Collins as the sizable outside receiver with Cooks and Mechie. Again, Mechie told me in February that the knee was great, and he's reiterated that. So we're on track here. So let's assume that he's ready. I think that's it, Greg. Right? Collins is your big outside guy, and then Cooks and Mechie are kind of interchangeable. The 2 and the 3. Well, Cooks is the 1, of course, but
Collins is long and can run, but he's a little bit of an unknown at this point, John. I mean, he's going to get the opportunity. We just don't know if he's going to be just a vertical guy who does not get a lot of volume, or if he can transition into more of a volume player. We don't know the answer to that.
John, one thing to add before we move on, just for people in dynasty leagues, Cooks' 3-year contract is really 2-year structure. So because Mechie's come back into an ACL, nobody has any idea what he'll do this season. We could say he's ahead of schedule. It means absolutely nothing in the spring. It means something when you're in August. So we'll know more when we get to training camp. I actually might be there. Someone invited me to go there, so do some radio.
Yeah. Greg, did you? They didn't do anything of note. I know. Well, actually, they did draft that tight end who is a big time project out of Oregon State.
But just get back to the receiver. So if you have Mechie in a dynasty league, let's just say they get whatever they get from the season. Who knows what that looks like? Right. But starting in 24. There's a very good chance Cooks will be gone because he's owed $13 million in 24. There's no guaranteed money. He's got a roster bonus due of March that year. So this is the example I gave you with Gabe Davis a couple years ago. If you waited out on Mechie, if you got him in a dynasty league, 24's got to be his breakout season. Could be 24. Get the knee right this season. Starts playing a decent amount in 23, and 24 is his year.
Yeah. Okay. Greg, did you watch Brevin Jordan's tape at Miami, or did you notice him last year? Because he was coming on, and
he did come on. Yeah, I really liked him coming out of Miami. I guess he was a later round pick. I heard there were some other issues. I don't know what they are.
There was some off the field something there.
Yeah, there was something there. I thought he was a really good prospect. The only thing you could possibly say is he doesn't have the length you'd ideally like in a tight end that you might view as a number 1 type tight end. But he's a really, really good receiver. He's incredibly athletic. I would expect him to continue to come on. See, I would expect him to be much more of a volume target than Nico Collins, John.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, definitely was a factor in that middle of the field. Let's move on to the Colts. Alec Pierce already making headlines. Greg, we're not surprised. You loved him. I watched his highlights, saw him at the Senior Bowl. I think he's good. I don't know, though. Let's check with Greg, and you liked him too. How do you see him working with Michael Pittman here? I think that you probably want to hand Pierce a starting job here with Pittman. A couple of sizable guys. We'll see if Paris Campbell can actually do something from the slot, but they don't really have much else. So I feel like the sizable wide receivers here, Pierce and Pittman, are going to be like everything. But give us your thoughts on Pierce.
Well, I like Pierce a lot. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't think there was a significant difference between Pierce and Drake London. I guess I'm in the minority there, obviously, by the fact that Drake London was at the 8th pick in the draft, and it seemed that a lot of people thought that's where he should go. But I really like Alec Pierce. He's long, he's athletic, he's a terrific athlete. He can make contested catches. I thought he had some nuance and detail and understanding of how to run routes. I mean, if Paris Campbell can stay healthy, and that's a big if given his early career in this league, but he was coming on when he broke his foot last year. They have a really intriguing receiving core, John.
Yeah. Do you think Pierce, I mean, this might be a weird question, but do you think Pierce is like a better red zone guy than Pittman? Because I saw that Pierce was a really good red zone guy, and I've been a little underwhelmed with their utilization of Pittman in the red zone.
Well, that's a tactical thing, so that's a tough question to answer. But Pierce certainly has a red zone element to his game because he's over 6'3" and he can go up and get it. He attacks the ball in the air. He's very good at the catch point. So he's certainly a red zone weapon if you choose to throw fades.
You guys, Adam, how you feeling about the offensive line now, where they made the move to get Dennis Kelly, right, and at left tackle, or maybe to plug up that hole at left tackle?
Yeah, Dennis Kelly is a backup. He doesn't move very well. He had some injury issues. He's a good 6 offensive lineman. I don't know. Here's the thing with Bernard Raymond. I know there were rumors he would go late first. The offensive line coaches that I talked to before the draft, they pegged him right, 3rd or 4th round. He's a project. I know he's got some athleticism. They're just, I would say the opinions are mixed. They don't have a great backup. Matt Pryor, they paid $5 million for the season, which blew me away. This guy's, Eagle fans know he's a journeyman type backup guard tackle. They've got some changes here. There's no doubt. They've got left tackle change and one of the other guard changes. So that's something to take a look at. And also on Alec Pierce. I know you guys love Alec Pierce. Not everyone was a fan of Alec Pierce. From what I was told by 2 receiver coaches, his combine workout was so extraordinary. He went from being a 3rd round pick to a 2nd round pick. That doesn't happen a lot, but his combine workout was apparently way better than expected. I thought
it was good at the Senior Bowl, Adam. Did you notice him?
I didn't notice him.
I did.
I just know the guys that I trust who are really good at evaluation. Both said some of the same thing. They did not like him as much as other people did, but it doesn't mean they're right or wrong. It just means they saw him a little differently.
I did talk with someone who I will not name, a draft analyst guy who didn't love Pierce, and I was like, oh wow, because I thought he was good, and then this person gave his opinion, and then I'm like, oh, I was starting to question it. Then I came back and read Greg's profile. I'm like, oh, we're good. He's good.
Well, he's got an opportunity though. Here's the thing: he'd almost have to fall flat in his face to not start on the outside opposite Pittman.
Yeah,
because Campbell they see him, as I understand, more of an inside receiver. Can play both.
Oh yeah,
they just don't have any other depth. Like, who else is going to play?
Yeah,
they're very
sorry, John. One guy to watch here for this receiving core. Naeem Hines had a career low catches and receiving yards last year, and I think that's very much, Greg, and maybe you could speak to this on tape. I think that's very much a product of Wentz's style.
I would agree.
I think he's going to catch a lot more passes this year.
Totally.
We called that before the season started, Joe. We said be careful with Hines because Wentz doesn't like to check it down. In fact, Chris Bauer, the GM, said that was one of his things they wanted to get done for the season to make sure Hines gets back in the passing game.
Jelani Woods, Greg, I know you are quite intrigued by this marvel, if you will. Of course, for me, it's annoying because Frank Reich likes to throw it to guys who, are averaging 1.1 targets a game the previous 5 weeks. And it does feel like he could be a guy who, makes a play here or there. It maybe prevents anyone else at the position from breaking out. Like, I guess not that we're expecting that from Mo Alley Cox, but talk about the short term ability. Like, what can he do in the short term, if anything, and then like the long term outlook here for tight end Jelani Woods.
Yeah, I mean, Woods is probably a little bit of a project. I really like him. I think he's one of the most intriguing guys in the draft. But he transferred from Oklahoma State, where he hardly ever was throwing the ball, and then went to Virginia, where they threw a ton, and he put up good numbers. And he certainly has unique size and length for a tight end. Runs pretty well for that kind of size and body type. But it's very possible, given that they have Mo Alley Cox and they have Kyle Granson, who happens to be an excellent receiver, that's his game, that Woods might not be a factor this year, John.
Yeah, I think that's we're not expecting the world for sure. I had one other question here. Greg, did you see Devontae Price at all yet?
No.
Florida International?
No.
Okay. I don't know about if you have any thoughts on him, Wes, but I did kind of like him. Now, he went undrafted, but do you have any thoughts, Wes, on Devontae Price?
Yeah, well, first of all, I liked his interview. I thought, he's coming in as an underdog. I thought it was impressive.
He was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good interview. But yeah, I mean, he obviously ran really well, and he's a kid that's it's not the greatest landing spot, but they lost Marlon Mack, so they're not going to keep Jonathan Taylor on the field 100% of the time in that featured role. So he could get some opportunities there. But yeah, he ran hard at Florida International, and I thought he would get drafted. I was really surprised that he went undrafted.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I was thinking like 6th rounder.
Yeah, first of all, the size and the combine workout. How the hell did he not get drafted?
So, I know.
We'll look into that. They need a primary. If Taylor gets hurt, Hines is not a high volume back. So I do want. That's a good call by you guys. We'll look into that.
Yeah, no doubt. That's why I brought it up. Greg, before we move on, our favorite son, God bless someone, our favorite son, Jonathan Taylor. The body work is still somewhat minimal here, but we're building on it. And where are we at? Where are you at with this guy? Like, where does he rank? I mean, I'm not saying GOAT or anything like that, but I mean, that kid's got to be climbing up the board here when you think about some of the better backs we've seen in this league the last half a century.
Well, John, come on.
That's a bit much.
It's like 2 years. I mean, I loved him coming out. You know that. I mean,
yeah.
But let's not start putting him in the Barry Sanders mold here. The guy's played 2 years. He's a really good back. I mean, from a fantasy perspective, he's going to get the ball. I think that's what we need to know. He's going to get the ball a lot. The offense will run through him. It has to run through him because Matt Ryan, at this point in his career, he's a play-action quarterback. He needs space to throw the ball. They're not going to have him just drop back and toss it around the yard. So the offense will run through Jonathan Taylor. Plus, they have some potential issues in pass protection, and that can somehow be minimized if you can run the ball. So we know what's going to happen in Indianapolis, but, I'd be a little leery of, and I know we're just having a conversation, but, the guy's played 2 years.
Well, I shouldn't tell you, but I've already put him in the hall, Greg, but I mean,
apparently
but we're talking 700 touches, 700.
Well, not to mention,
how many more carries I need to see from Jonathan Taylor.
Where did you put? Where's Ezekiel Elliott in your conversation, John? After 700 touches, he was the best back in the history of the game.
Yeah,
well, he's still the most.
He is really fallen off. Yeah, he's really fallen off.
Yeah. So I mean, we're just talking fantasy here. We know he's going to get the ball, but I don't think we need to put him in the the context of the 100 years plus of the NFL right now.
Right. I'm going to say I think Taylor's better than Zeke Elliott for the long speed element. Zeke ain't popping off 70-yard runs. So it's close though. I know, just food for thought.
I am John, a little concerned though about the left tackle position. To me, is a real strange one for me.
It's a concern for sure. Yeah, they don't have one right now.
Yeah, and I don't know if Raven's going to be ready.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's not quite as bad as watching the Cowboy line, speaking of Zeke, deteriorate in front of our eyes, right? Though, I mean, they still have Quentin
They got
Nelson,
right. They got 3 studs, but the one
yeah,
guard spot. I
Kelly
don't know.
Smith.
If they like Pinter. I know from talking to them, they've talked them up, but we'll see.
Let's go to Jacksonville. And speaking of O lines, Adam, what are your thoughts on their approach in the draft? I had them taking Evan Neal. They obviously didn't, and they didn't do anything at tackle. So now we've got all these weapons. Doug Peterson, O line type of guy, tight end type of guy, receiver type of guy. Great, but we still have potentially a so-so O line.
Well, they extended Cam Robinson's contract, so he's their franchise left tackle. Juwan Taylor's back at right tackle. Sheriff will start at one guard spot, which is right guard. I think Greg told us about Fortner, if I'm not mistaken. He liked him a lot.
I did.
And,
Yeah.
Right, and the kid Ben Barch was drafted a couple of years ago, so they should be good. My sense is they maybe either realized the Walker Little draft pick was a mistake in second round last year, or they just don't see him as a starter, which is not good. He was a second round pick. Although maybe he moves to right tackle. We'll look into that. The only issue for me is the approach. My sense is, just knowing the way that Peterson thinks, talking to people who work with him, they'll be heavy, and I mean heavy 11 personnel. And obviously they have enough receivers now
Yeah.
to do that. This is what the Eagles were the first 2 years, and then once they drafted Goddard, they didn't have a choice. They had to change the flow.
Greg, last year was rough for Lawrence. I know you were saying last year that like almost throw it out the window. It's like he's a rookie again in 2022. We like the additions. There are plenty of good receivers here these days, but again, I'll go back to that O-line. How important, look, a young quarterback, he is mobile, but how prohibitive might this be for, a little bit of a breakout with, some protection issues potentially on the edges there?
I mean, he needs to be protected. He certainly needs to be protected on the inside. The interior O-line controls the depth of the pocket, so he needs to be protected on the inside. That's the kind of quarterback he is. He's a strider. He needs room to throw. But they have Sheriff at right guard. I really like Fortner. Fortner's over 6'4". He's a big center.
Oh, yeah.
I think he'll be a really good player. So, I think if they're going to line up a lot in 11 personnel, you can still obviously run the ball. I think the big question here, which we don't know the answer to, is the usage of Travis Etienne as a runner. I think they'll split him out. I think he'll be a factor in the pass game. The question is, what will be his volume as a runner?
Well, as we know, he bulked up a little bit entering the league, presumably to handle, the inside tough stuff. I mean, what did you think of him as an inside runner in college when he was doing that?
I thought he was much better his last year at Clemson in that regard. I thought he ran more like a feature back his last year at Clemson. Again, whether that translates to the league now remains to be seen, but that was an area of clear improvement from his second to last year to his last year at Clemson.
Yeah, and Adam, as we've discussed here, look, we're I think all like big on pedigree, and Etienne has got that for sure, and he's only going off the board at like 50 overall, which is kind of unusual. I know he's coming off the list front, but seems like he has a clean bill of health right now. And what is up with James Robinson? Like, I feel like Etienne could get 200 carries this year.
Well, we don't know about. He's coming off 20 Achilles, so you can just put him to the side. We have no information about when he'll be ready. But Etienne, I could tell you, I reported back at the combine that he had already been running, so he's good to go. Greg makes a good point. We just don't know from a volume standpoint, in terms of running the football, how much he'll run. And then you got the Snoop Connor kid,
who I liked.
Yeah, who should make the team, and he could be involved in the run game. But we look at so talking to the coaches who are on the former staff, they had a pretty significant role for Etienne in mind in terms of the pass game.
Yeah,
Greg was alluding to that. I mean, it could have been. I don't know how many catches he would have gotten, but he would have been split out a lot. So you would just assume that Peterson's done that before with the Eagles, so you assume that they'll do that here. He could be pretty sneaky, but as you said, John, he didn't play last season because he broke his foot, and that's a pretty bad injury. So we have to see how good he looks. That's another team I hope to see in August, because they've got some talent now on offense. They addressed it pretty significantly.
Maybe I'm overreacting to the O-line too, because to Greg's point, Greg, they have solidified the interior of this line this offseason.
Yeah, and I think they probably feel pretty good at tackle. I don't think Jawan Taylor has become exactly what they hoped, but Cam Robinson, Taylor at the tackles, with assuming Fortner can step right in and start, which I think he can. We know what Sheriff is, so they have addressed the O-line.
Plenty of tight ends with Dan Arnold and Evan Ingram. I don't think there's a lot of fantasy juice going on there. And the receiving group, Adam, it does seem a little interchangeable here. I'm just going to slot Kirk in as the top target by default based on youth, talent, contract. Then I'll put Marvin probably next. And then maybe Zay Jones and Treadwell and Chenault kind of rotate and battle it out for snaps.
Yeah, that's fair. Kirk, by contract, he has to be their top target because to justify it, $18 million a year, which is a massive overpay. By the way, he's probably going to get that from another team. Sounds crazy, but I don't know what the league's fascination with Christian Kirk is. But hey, Marvin Jones is in the final year of his deal. Zay Jones are paying, I think, $7 million a year. Which is a massive overpay. The guy's a backup receiver. He's going to have to play. So those three guys will be their primary guys on the field. Ingram's a split out tight end. John, you kind of see what they want to be. They want to be a passing team. That just shows you.
Yeah.
Now you throw ETN in there. This could be interesting with Peterson. I look forward to seeing how he uses these guys.
Greg, any thoughts on Kirk? I mean, is he a guy that, most players, the more targets, the better they are. Though sometimes, some guys are not really volume type of guys. Kirk can be an inside-outside guy. Is he good enough? Is he big enough? Is he equipped to kind of be like a one, basically, for lack of a better term?
Well, I think the attraction to Kirk is he is an inside-outside guy. I mean, a one is a relative term. We know he's not, a one like a big-time one just in terms of pure talent. Right. But I think for an offense that Doug Peterson is going to run, he's an inside-outside guy. By the way, all their guys are inside-outside guys.
Yeah, they are.
So that's I think what has them excited. So in this offense, could Kirk be a volume target? Yes, he certainly could be. And we could be talking next year about Kirk having 85 catches, which doesn't automatically mean he's Julio Jones in his prime. But, in the context of this offense, he's probably going to get a lot of targets, John.
Yeah, and he's affordable in the fantasy world. I mean, he's certainly not pricey going off the board, like 100 overall at wide receiver 48. We've got him at wide receiver 41. Does anyone else have any questions on these Jaguars? I don't really have anything of notes. So we'll move on to the Tennessee Titans. And here we go. I don't know where to start in terms of the problems. Maybe the O-line. Greg, you've watched this team a lot. Is this a deteriorating O-line with Taylor Lewan coming off an injury-plagued campaign? Roger Saffold is now gone as well.
I think it has some significant concerns. I don't think Taylor Lewan is quite as good as many think he is. I can tell you that for a fact, not only from tape study, but from conversations. They've got a question at left guard. Jones is solid, but getting older. I think Nate Davis is a quality right guard. They have significant questions at this moment in time at right tackle. They drafted Nicholas Pettit-Frere from Ohio State, and I think they'd like him to be their right tackle. I don't personally believe, based on my study of him a year ago, that Dylan Radins is an outside player in the NFL. So we'll see how that plays out. So they've got questions on their O-line.
So you think Radins is not even a left tackle, right? Because he's a smaller guy, right?
Not necessarily smaller. I just don't think he's got the traits that you'd like to see out there. Hey, I'm no offensive line guru, John, by any means, but I almost felt like when I watched Dylan Radins, I thought of him being a center.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I guess he is kind of big. He looked thin to me when I remember watching him.
He's got a thin build. You're right.
Yeah, he does. So this is a problem, Greg, and
potential. Yep.
And obviously we know what Derrick Henry is all about. He's going to get the ball if healthy. but I know it's a cliche, but the old stack box thing here. I mean, without A.J. Brown, and of course we go back to the true breakout for Henry, which came with Jonnu and Corey Davis and Tannehill playing lights out. Like, that's just a big ask here to look at.
The big issue, and I'm sure Adam has some good information on this, is what everybody thought last year, which did not work out, even when Julio Jones was playing, was everybody, as soon as they traded for Julio Jones, just assumed, oh, Derrick Henry, everybody's going to play in the box. You're going to get one-on-one on the outside, and they're going to have a big-time passing game. Okay, that did not happen that way. And I actually said that last summer. I said, you got to be careful about that. Defenses are a little smarter than people might be giving them credit for. But the hope certainly is that the Henry factor and how good he is presents opportunities in the pass game. Yeah. I think that's an open question right now.
I feel like Henry can definitely help the passing game by just being himself and getting
theoretically, yes, but it didn't happen that way, John.
Right. Well, because Julio was just so bad. You know, I remember one game, you know, you watch the tape and you're like, yeah, Julio, not good. But I don't think the receiving core is good enough to take some of the pressure off of Derrick Henry too. I mean, right? I mean, that's more.
Well, then basically what you're saying is you don't believe they can win one-on-ones.
Right. And they'll see a lot of that. I don't know. Am I wrong? I mean, Traylon Burks.
It's an open question.
Yeah.
That's my point. We don't know the answer to that. It's an open question.
Where are you guys at with Henry? Because he's still going off the board like 5 overall. I just can't do that.
Yeah, I think it's a little rough, John. And I was somebody who was in on him in a big way last year. And I mean, Derrick Henry is always one of those guys who are like, oh, I don't think it's good. This is the year he's going to fall off. And then it never does. But of course, he got hurt last year. Going to the receiving core, though, really quick. Greg, I know there's a lot of questions here, but one guy that you liked a lot, and I think is going to have a ton of opportunity, is Kyle Phillips at UCLA.
I loved Kyle Phillips. You know, it's funny, a former coach who I'm very good friends with, who coached in the NFL for 40 years, we shared the point of view that Kyle Phillips has similarities. And you know, I always hate saying this kind of stuff because people just take the one line. But I thought he had similarities to Cooper Kupp coming out of Eastern Washington. Now, keep in mind that Cooper Kupp, his first year in the league, caught 46 balls. He didn't catch 146 balls as a rookie. And I'm not saying Kyle Phillips is going to catch 140 balls in 4 years or 5 years. But I think Phillips is the kind of guy, based on my tape study, that could line up at your slot receiver tomorrow and be good. That was my point. Not that he's Cooper Kupp from last year.
I mean,
how about outside? Because Kupp, you know, always been a guy who could be outside at 6'2".
Kupp's bigger than Phillips.
Yeah, and it's funny. In my tape, I said he may not be Cooper Kupp as a rookie. Kupp is a bigger man, and that's a significant difference. But Phillips will fill the same role.
I mean, John, keep in mind, Hunter Renfrow was a 5th-round pick.
Oh,
like just like slot receiver only, not a big guy, not a great athlete, but sometimes these guys just know how to catch footballs. I mean, he's got a shot to play because their receiving depth chart is not good.
No, it's not.
Yeah, no. I mean, how about this name? Still in the league, Josh Malone. I'm like, what? That's a little weird, right?
I know, like and there's a kid that always had talent. I've never spoken to anyone about him. I don't know if Adam has. I don't know why he didn't make it. There's got to be a reason. But the kid, I remember him coming out of college, and because he's so big, there were snaps in college he looked like Julio Jones.
Yep. Yeah, no, I saw it too. You know, you never know what's going on, you know, not getting it mentally. But Hassan Haskins, before we move on, Greg, it looks like clearly he's your backup.
Which I think is what he is.
Yeah, volume guy. You know, he's one of those no nonsense, no mystery guys, right?
He follows the path. He follows the design of the play. He's one of those guys that if you had to give him the ball 250 times, he'd probably gain 1,000 yards behind a good old line.
Can I chime in here, please?
Wes Huber, this is your guy. He's pretty humble. We talked to him about scoring 5 touchdowns against Ohio State, and he's like, "Yeah, no big deal."
Yeah, he wouldn't elaborate. I was trying to provoke him a little bit, and it didn't work. But I'm going to disagree on Hassan Haskins. I think this guy is going to be something in the league more than a backup. And I think you give him 250 carries, he's getting more than 1,000 yards. This guy's a lot more athletic than what's being passed about. I think he's a big time sleeper in an offense that they're going to feature heavy sets and hand the ball off the majority of the time. I mean, this guy was at his size. I mean, he's massive too. Like just seeing him in person, I mean, he's jumping over people, clean hurdling people. This guy's, I mean, goodness, it was blowing me away. Of course, I'm an Ohio State fan, and watching Michigan destroy Ohio State in the game last year, it was tough to watch. But at the same time, I was blown away by this guy. And there are times where I think he's a little indecisive. He's a inside zone guy, but he can get outside as well. But I think his elusiveness and his ability to break tackles at his size, and he's got legs the size of like Adrian Peterson's. His quads are massive. I mean, this guy is going to be something, I think. And I think that's exactly why Tennessee drafted him. They brought in Malik Willis, and I think Hassan Haskins is going to be right alongside him as the guys that they're looking at for the future. But obviously the O-line's the issue there.
It'd be interesting to see if called upon, if Haskins can perform as well as Deontay Foreman. Foreman seems like a little bit more of a violent runner. Like Wes, who do you think? Would you take Haskins in that battle, if you will?
It's tough because I like Foreman as well. I mean, his senior year at Texas was ridiculous. I mean, just unbelievable, unstoppable. And, it was such a shame when he came out and tore his Achilles, and it was after the game where, he rushed for 100 yards his first game. He just floated about, and then, now he's back. So I like both of those guys quite a bit. Big guys too. And don't sleep on Foreman in Carolina, because he's probably the RB2 there.
Yeah. Greg, the tight end that Tennessee took, Okonkwo, or I didn't get to that kid, but I think you liked him, right?
I did.
Yeah. What type of player is he? Is he a project? Is he an upside guy down the road?
Well, I think there was more to him than the way in which he was used at Maryland. I think he has 3-level ability. I think he's a really good athlete. I think for whatever it's worth, his combine workout was really, really good. I think he can be a vertical seam stretcher. He can run intermediate routes. He wasn't asked to do much of this in college. So I think there's much to work with him. Whether he's ready early, that's a hard question for me to answer. But I think that there's something there with this kid.
Do you think he's
feels like
more
somebody
of like a flex tight end or H-back, though? Because I think he's only like 6'2".
He's 6'2", 238. I mean, he worked very hard as a run blocker. He just may not be big enough to do it really, really well. But he was very competitive as a run blocker. I don't know if he ultimately is an inline run blocker in their run game, but I don't think they drafted him for that, because they do have a tight end that they feel very good about as a run blocker, and that's Jeff Swaim. And they also obviously have Austin Hooper, who they signed. So I don't think Okonkwo, if he does get meaningful snaps, would be seen, Wes, as an inline run blocker.
I mean, is he Jonnu-like?
He's probably similar in that regard, and Jonnu was never quite used the way that I think we all thought that his talent suggested he could be.
Yep. Let's head on over to the AFC West and wrap this town hall up for 2022. The Denver Broncos. I think we've all spent a ton of time breaking down Russell Wilson and the prospects here. Certainly a solid situation. Didn't do that much in the draft. They do, though, add Greg Dulcich, one of our favorite guys at the Combine.
Yep.
And he can run, Greg.
I like him.
Is this are we basically replacing Noah Fant with Greg Dulcich? I don't know about this year, but
to some degree.
Yeah.
Obviously it's a brand new offense, so it's Hackett, whose background is more what would be viewed as West Coastish. So if everybody's healthy, they actually have a pretty interesting group of receivers, including tight ends, because Albert O is a pretty athletic kid too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Good red zone guy. Another kid I interviewed at the Combine I liked a lot. Russell Wilson, though, it almost seems a little too good to be true when you look at where he's coming from. I know they had the two guys, but not much else to this team here. Greg, I do kind of feel like he's a declining player. He was older rookie.
Who are we talking about?
Russell Wilson.
Okay.
I also do feel like I feel confident that he's going to play at a high level for the foreseeable future. But again, I do think he's a declining guy. Maybe I'm being, blinded by the finger injury last year, but he's been a weird guy to break down, I'm sure, over the course of his career, right? Because he's just so brilliant in some ways. Probably does things that drive you nuts a little bit, being a little bit more of a traditionalist. But your thoughts on where Russell Wilson is right now? Still playing at a high level, but might he be a declining guy?
I don't, that's a tough thing to answer. Obviously he's now going to be in a different offense. This is what he wanted. He wanted out of Seattle. He wants to be the guy. That's a hard question. He'll put up numbers, John. I can't imagine he's not going to put up numbers. The question is, what is their offense going to look like? They re-signed Gordon. They still have two really good backs. Are they going to try to run the ball with volume? Is it going to be a Russell Wilson offense? I don't know if anybody has thoughts on this. I don't know, Adam, if you do, but I don't know what they see their offense as.
Yeah, I would think, obviously, with Wilson coming in, what they're paying him, it'll be more of a passing offense, but it's not like they're going to ignore the run game. Wilson, his big issue is that he wanted the pass game to go through him and his right arm, not go through him handing it off. And he, as you said, he got what he wanted. They're pretty loaded in good pass target groups. So, and their line, they had a couple guys hurt last year. Everybody's back. So this is a good offensive line. This has potential to be a top 5 offense. That's how much talent they've got around them.
Yeah. Greg, I think
look at who's been their quarterback the past couple of years. Like Adam was saying, the wide receiver talent they have, and then Albert O. I love Albert O. And then Javonte can catch the ball, and Melvin Gordon's not too bad. This is just such a massive upgrade for the Denver Broncos, considering what they've had at quarterback in the past several years.
Nathaniel Hackett's background, Greg, has been a little bit more conservative. I remember. Didn't he have like CJ Spiller and Freddie Jackson in Buffalo, then like Leonard? My personal feeling is it'll be balance, like they're not.
Well, everybody's, not to interrupt you, John. Yeah. I think most coaches say that, particularly in an off season when they don't really have to do anything in a game. Right. I think Russell Wilson left Seattle because he felt like he was balanced, Right. So I think if you trade for Russell Wilson, and I don't know what kind of conversations they had before they made the trade for him. I think Russell Wilson wants to be Tom Brady and control the whole game and be that guy.
What are your thoughts on that proposition if that's the case? Can he do that?
I don't know if that's truly possible.
Because
there's certain things he can't do because of his size.
Right. That is why I think it would be, you don't want to be like Seattle and run, 40 times a game. But on the other hand, you don't want.
Well, let me ask you this, John. I don't know the answer to this question. Okay. I'm just posing. I think we all understand that coaches in the NFL are pretty smart. Okay. We can sit here and debate that. People like to think because the team loses, coaches are idiots. We get all that. These guys work so hard. They're all pretty smart. I'd love to hear anybody else's point of view on this. Why do you think the Seahawks played the way they did? I don't know the answer to that question.
I'll take a stab at it that, Russell Wilson was a little bit too reliant on second reaction, improvisational, without outside of structure, street ball. And, it worked. Tyler Lockett, for the most part, got on the same page, scramble drill on. Okay, meet me at the 30-yard line. I think
the easy answer for people, and please, I'm not giving an answer here, and this is no knock on Russell Wilson. We're just trying to figure this out. The easy answer is, well, Pete Carroll would do that. That's the way Pete Carroll thinks. Well, would Pete Carroll play that way with Tom Brady?
No.
I don't know.
Maybe with that O-line, the O-lines they're putting out every year.
Maybe.
It's just
There could be, Wes, you're right. There could be any number of reasons, but he's played that way with Russell Wilson from day one.
And Danny Kelly was on with Scott on the podcast last week, John. And, like Greg was saying, yeah, everybody loves to try to make fun of Pete Carroll. And, maybe he was a little rigid. But Danny Kelly's point was Pete Carroll essentially thinks that turnovers are like the mortal sin of football. And when they opened it up a couple of years ago with Russ, they got to a point where he was turning the ball over at an extremely high rate, and they never went back to him as that kind of quarterback again after that. And, you can argue right or wrong, but I think that's a valid look into the way Russell Wilson plays. And we also know that sacks are very much a quarterback stat, and Russell Wilson has been getting sacked 40 plus times for a large portion of his career. You can argue that that's the offensive line, but sacks are drive killers just like turnovers are. And I think Pete Carroll is probably looking at this whole thing like, look, he turned the ball over when we opened it up. He got sacked more often. I'm just going to go back to playing the way I played it.
Yeah. Yeah. Greg, you saw that on tape over the last
Adam, you're on mute.
Oh, Greg, you saw that on tape.
Adam is on mute. He's talking.
He is. Adam, hello.
I'm mute. Okay.
Oh,
let me just look at the first half numbers of 2020 when Carroll didn't micromanage the offense. Look at the second half. Pete, the real story is Pete had a real issue with their defense. They couldn't stop anyone.
Yeah, that's true.
He does not like throwing the ball a lot. Now, you can blame Russell Wilson all you want, and obviously the second half is when he really turned it over. If I'm not, without looking it up, I'm almost certain, though, he had 28 passing touchdowns in the first half of the season. That's not what Pete Carroll wants. No matter how, they were so aggressive. He gave in to, the way I understood it 2 years ago, Schottenheimer came to Pete and said, this is what I want to do. And his front office had been going to him for years about coming out being aggressive in the first half of games. Pete finally gave in, and it was incredible. Second half of the season, Russell was turning the ball over. Part of it is because once Pete saw that it wasn't going to work and he didn't get what he wanted, he said, we're not doing this anymore. That's what happened.
28-6. 28-6.
That's the real story. If you want to know, all this stuff is great, but that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, so I think we can go all day and try to blame Russell Wilson. I really don't think that's what it is. I think there's a variety of factors that went into the issues in Seattle. And like Joe was saying about the sacks, I mean, he's really never had a good O-line protecting him. And I think where he goes to Denver, which I think is I believe he had a no trade clause, so he had to accept where he was going to be traded. And I'm pretty sure that the Broncos probably made some promises to him that things were going to be different there. And plus, that O-line is going to be the best O-line he's ever played with during his career. And at quarterback, I mean, age does not matter. As long as you're playing at a high level and you have an offensive line protecting you, you can play into your 40s.
Oh, sure. A guy like him, though, I do wonder losing a little bit of the margin for error with, maybe the legs. He's not running around as well and all that. But, Greg,
I guess we're saying that Pete Carroll's not very smart, huh?
Well, I'm going to ask you, Greg, when you watch the tape of Russell Wilson last 2, 3, 4 years, or even the whole career, how often does he not pull the trigger and hold the ball when plays are there?
I think that's always part of his game, even when he's playing at a high level, because there's some things he can't see, and plus he's a really good runner. So there's times he just sees it and he wants to run, and he's a really good runner. I know from conversations I've had at the Combine, they've never stopped him from doing that. No one will say to Russell Wilson that, there was a throw there to be made. Why didn't you throw it when he runs? No one has said that to him in Seattle. And you could certainly make the argument that you shouldn't say that to him. I wasn't trying to knock Russell Wilson. I'm just trying to figure out why, if, and I think it's fair to say Russell Wilson's a really good player. Of course, it's fair to say that why Seattle played the way they did. Is it simply Pete Carroll being so incredibly stubborn? I mean, are we ultimately saying that Pete Carroll did not want to have offensive success throwing the ball? That no matter what success they had throwing the ball that Pete Carroll was going into meetings with his team and saying, hey, guys, we are freaking great on offense throwing the ball, but you know what? I don't want to do that. So even though we're scoring a lot of points, our quarterback's playing at a really high level. Let's not do that. Let's run the ball so we play at a lesser level. Is that what we're trying to say here?
Yeah, I just don't buy that. I don't buy it.
I think he'd rather hang his hat on the run, period.
That's true.
I think it's more stubborn, not stupid.
What's that?
Yeah.
More stubborn, not stupid.
I mean,
they kind of go together, though, in the context of what we're saying.
I think this is also such a unique discussion here because
By the way, I'm not taking a side. I'm just trying to go back to my college days, when I was told to try to look at all sides of the issue. I'm not – Russell Wilson's a great player. That's not the point, because I know people are going to come away from this saying, well, you're saying Russell Wilson's not a good player. Russell Wilson's a really, really good quarterback. That's not the point. You're just trying to figure out, does Pete Carroll want to have a lesser offense just so he can say we're playing my way, or would he rather have a really good offense?
Yeah, I think it's just so unique because Russell Wilson's been in the league now. He's played 10, 11 years in the league, and he's never had a different head coach. Yeah. So I think this is one where you can look and say, well, he's had 2-3 head coaches and they've all decided to play this way. I'm really excited to see what this team looks like, frankly.
Yeah, we'll find the answer this year. Now that he's in a different system, different coach, different O-line. I think all of our questions are going to be answered really quickly.
I agree.
I'll wrap it up by saying, look, I know it's easy to just say, oh, they're going to be balanced, but not every team can be balanced. This team, though, is equipped better than almost any other team in the NFL to truly be balanced. I mean, you could almost start their backups on a couple of teams over here. Yet they have Javonte.
I mean, let me ask you this, and then we'll put it to bed because we can go on forever and we don't need to. They have Javonte Williams and they re-signed Melvin Gordon for a reason. Do you guys in the fantasy world, I'm not in that world as far as doing projections. Do you guys in the fantasy world think that Javonte Adams is getting 11 carries a game and Melvin Gordon's getting 7 carries a game? What is their offense going to look like?
No, they're going to
run.
Well,
let me tell you how many pass attempts I have Russell doing in 16 games, 34 a game, which is up. But not that up.
Mentioned Wilson and Gordon. They played together in college, so it's.
Yeah, that's true. And then Greg, to answer the question, then we can in fact move on. Javonte and Melvin, 385 carries. So that's about, let's call it 24 running back carries a game. So I think, again, to my point, it's balance. I know it's easier said than done. And it's not a cop-out, though, because they have 2 good backs, 2 good tight ends, and 4 good receivers. And
they were starting a second-string quarterback all year.
Yeah, and then KJ Hamler could be a shot play guy. That's another guy. So, yeah, I don't think I swear, final point, I don't think Russell Wilson is going to support a volume receiver this year, which is why I'm not as high on our guy Jerry Jeudy. Does anyone disagree there?
No, I dropped him 5 spots, I think, recently when I did the big changes in the dynasty ranks. I agree. I think he was up a little too high, up there, and I think he was at number 10, and I think I dropped him to 15. So I think long term he's going to be fine, but I need to see something first before I get really excited about him.
All right. Well, finally, let's move on to Kansas City. Greg, I'm going to go right back to you. Given the way they've operated this offseason, trading away Tyreek, and I know they added Sky Moore, but they bring in Ronald Jones. Do you feel like the offense may change a little bit? I'm starting to get that vibe that it's going to be a little bit more possession-y, if you will.
It was last year.
I know. And it feels like they're getting personnel.
Don't forget, Andy Reid's had great success without what people would consider great receivers. He did that in Philly. So, it changed last year. I think there's a stat, and maybe somebody knows this. Mahomes was among the league leaders in throwing balls under 10 yards from the line of scrimmage.
Right.
again, somebody might have that stat. I don't have it right in front of me, but it changed as last year progressed. So that wouldn't be new, John.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of what they've done? I actually, my feeling is I'm okay with it. Like, I'm not that worried about the loss of a Tyreek, even though I don't expect much from Juju. I'd have to imagine he can't line up outside at this point. MVS will be the shot play guy, and we do love Sky Moore. Anything we get from Hardman, I guess, will be just to add it to it, and then Kelsey. So ultimately, I'm still okay with KC. Greg,
yeah, I mean, they just don't have Tyreek Hill.
Right.
Although last year Tyreek Hill did not catch as many deep balls as we know. I guess the big question, and I don't have an answer for this, John, I don't know if you do or if anybody else does, is does the run game increase in volume? They did sign Ronald Jones.
And who doesn't catch the ball well. So clearly you brought in Ronald Jones to run the rock.
Or block.
I would say yes, Greg. I think they're going to be a little bit more boring, if you will.
Maybe. We always do this, these things like after the draft. I don't know. I don't know what their offense will look like.
Yeah. Well, does anybody else have any thoughts here? Adam, do you have any thoughts on, I know Edwards-Helaire has been underwhelming, but at the very least, in terms of the running backs on the roster, like Edwards-Helaire has got to be their receiving back now.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think you've got it correct. It's a tough offense now because they're not, for the first time in nearly 7 years, they don't have Tyreek Hill to throw the ball to, and how he changes what defense is trying to do. Just the guy that I cannot. I'm usually not high on rookie receivers, but Sky Moore would be a guy just based on the people I've spoken with, and I have a lot of trust in Andy Reid, who more or less made the call on that one. I've got a lot of trust in their ability to evaluate receivers. It hasn't worked out for
Hardman,
yeah, the second rounder. But you know what? This kid's a better football player. They overdrafted Hardman because of the Tyreek Hill situation back in 2019. And it hasn't worked, but this one is going to work. It's just a matter of, we know he can win on the outside because he did in college. How much will they use him on the outside? Can he come in and start? That remains to be seen. I mean, we're still expecting a lot of heavy 11 personnel. And then the other thing, John, I was telling you, don't underestimate the loss of Mike Kafka as their passing game coordinator. He's very involved in conceptually what their pass game looks like. So we'll see if Matt Nagy, who will replace him, has any say in that.
Greg, Sky Moore in this offense. Adam and I interviewed him on the radio. Great interview. He did line up outside, and he won. Huge hands, but and he agreed. By the way, he said he feels like it would be best and easiest to transition inside as a rookie. I don't know what the hell they do with Juju there, but I also do think that Sky Moore is one of these guys like where I feel like he can win quickly. The first quick step, he talked about his short area burst, like the first 10 yards were really, really good. I feel like he can win quickly, and Andy and Pat Mahomes will get him the ball.
Well, assuming their offense stays relatively the same conceptually, they run a ton of RPOs. So you're going to get glance routes and slant routes, which he was phenomenal at Western Michigan. He ran a ton of those. And the other thing that he did a lot of, which is clearly part of what the Chiefs do, are those schemed manufactured touches, John.
Totally.
Screens, orbit reverse, jet sweeps, as I mentioned, RPO slants, motion. He'll be part of all of that. So he fits what they do. I think you'll see him as a guy who lines up inside and outside once he settles in. He could well be a volume target guy in the context of their offense, or in his first year, if these other players become factors, the guys they signed, he could be more of a, 20 snap a guy game. I don't think we know the answer to that yet.
Adam, we're going on the positive side of that, right? All that. Like,
oh yeah,
like the wide range of possible outcomes. Sky Moore, we're going high end.
Here's the thing, though. He has an opportunity. Hardman's been a major disappointment. I know MVS has to start because of his contract. He'll start on the outside. Juju will probably play more inside and outside, being that they're going to be heavy 11 personnel. Oh, one thing, his 10 was tied for the best 10 times.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Sky Moore ran a 1.4610, which was it's really
amazing.
good.
Exactly.
Right. And he's not.
That's what I mean. Like he's going to win.
Right, his short area quickness, get him the ball and let him run after the catch. So I'm real bullish on him. I'm really interested to see how they use him and how well they think of him once we get to training camp and what his role will be. Because he's got a chance, John, to outlast everyone long term. Juju's on a 1-year deal. Hardman, I can't imagine.
Oh God, no, yeah, for sure.
Think about that for Dynasty League.
Like that's like Mahomes' new guy.
Could
you
be. And
Well, I mean,
Who was that?
Kelsey's still there. But
Well, yeah, Sky Moore.
MVS has never proven anything.
the one thing I did want to throw in there though is I think Ben would be beside himself if we didn't mention Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
I think he's a. I mean, they may get tired of Jones pretty quickly. We don't know. He's a pretty well defined back. He's multidimensional. I think he could fit into the offense with that speed, and he's got good hands as well.
Yeah.
The other
I was-
factor, if I could
Yeah,
mention one other back, as long as Wes mentioned Pacheco,
Ely.
Ely's a really good receiver.
I hated
know.
his interview, by the way.
Oh yeah, he was kind of he was not great, but yeah.
Well, he's a really good receiver, though.
Oh, I know. I'm a little surprised he went undrafted.
Yeah, they'll line him up in the slot. He played more in the slot than I think any other running back in this class. So he's a guy that they can use him at receiver.
Yeah, I wonder if they maybe let Derek Gore go and keep these two rookies around. But final thought on Edwards-Helaire. Does anyone have anything? I mean, I thought he's run well the last 2 years. I do think if you look at the roster, he's got to be the receiving down back. I kind of like him, but I mean, it's tough to back.
He just can't stay healthy. And then the other thing about him is when he is banged up, he just doesn't look like the same type of player. He doesn't really play through injury very well. So you need him like 100% to get the Edwards-Helaire that you want to see.
Greg, is it possible that with 2 years in the books that Andy, look, I worked for a year with Brian Westbrook, and he told me that, Andy was a little slow to trust these young guys. And is it possible that in year 3, Edwards-Helaire all of a sudden can do more in the passing game? Because we're still waiting for, the route running actually, like wheel routes, at least anything other than a check down,
Well, I guess I don't know how to answer that, Johnny. I mean, he was a great receiver in college. Other than a few flash moments in the NFL, that has not happened, and he's been hurt, and he hasn't quite been used that way.
Right.
So he didn't. My guess is he didn't lose his receiving talent.
Right.
I guess it's a matter of how Andy Reid wants to use him.
Yeah, but I mean, if he doesn't do it this year, then it's never going to happen, probably. But
the one thing that worries me, John, pass protection. I from what I understand, it's pretty hard. I heard from Chiefs he's a pretty hard worker, cares a lot, but he's also very small at 5'8".
Yeah,
you just wonder. He only got just over 2 targets per game. That's not good, or somewhere around that number. And he's missed a lot of time. I mean, he missed 7 games last season. I don't know if it's going to happen. But year 3, though, I'm taking your side. I'm gonna just buy that Andy Reid knows what he's doing, which he does.
Right. Yeah.
And he'll get more volume in the pass game. Now, you and I said that he was largely going to be overdrafted last year, and he was he. Even when healthy, he didn't do well until late last season.
Yeah.
So I would be concerned, but this is it for him. He has to get it done. I know he's signed for another year, but they won't pick up his 5th-year option if he doesn't play well.
Let's go to the Raiders. 2 more teams to go here. The AFC West and Central or South covered today on this town hall, which wraps up all 32 teams, all the divisions. Raiders, Josh McDaniels. I'm very high on everything here. If there is one thing that goes wrong, I would imagine the O-line would be it. I don't know, Adam, who is going to be the right tackle, for example.
Yeah, they are a mess. They're definitely a mess. Though they drafted kid Parham in the 3rd round, who'll obviously compete. The Leatherwood one, remember, the previous regime overreached for him, and they immediately saw that he's not a tackle. So there are a lot of moving parts here. They're going to have to figure this out. This is not good. You're right. I mean, they've got some this new personnel staff and coach staff's got a lot of work to do because they got to figure this out together, what it should look like.
Might they add another receiver? Because please don't tell me that Demarcus Robinson is going to be their second outside receiver.
They need
He is
to.
now.
They did have Keelan Cole.
Keelan Cole's there, but he's just a guy, and Matt Collins and stuff. You're right, John. That's a mess.
But do you think maybe they'll go just two tight end sets since they're
Right,
having
but
the
you still
issues
need,
in
but you
protection?
can't line up with Jamarcus Robinson being a starter. They have to do something.
Oh yeah,
I hear you though. Yeah,
and
they might be
yeah.
having 12. Well, we know that he'll do that. We know that McDaniels will do that. But they got to find someone else. They can't line up this season. I know it's only May now, but they got to do something.
Yeah, then a bunch of running backs. It's going to be a little difficult to evaluate. Well, Jacobs obviously is the guy. We'll see if Brandon Bolden makes the team. And as it relates to Amir Abdullah, Zamir White would be more of a potential replacement for early down work down the road. And then you have the Drake here. So it is a little bit of a cluster. Greg, do you have any general thoughts though on the offense? I do still feel good. Schedule is a little scary though. But
well, I think they're going to be very multiple personnel wise because they also signed Jakob Johnson, who's a fullback and played significant snaps in New England. So McDaniel is going to play him. He didn't sign him, for no reason. So they're going to be a team that plays a lot of 21 personnel as well. They're going to be really multiple personnel wise, multiple formationally. They're going to try to account for the fact that DeMarcus Robinson may not be that guy as a number 2 receiver. They're going to try to compensate and camouflage all that with different personnel packages, different formations. McDaniel's really good at that stuff. Don't count that out. I mean, their O-line is clearly an issue, and obviously that needs to either come together or be addressed. Although I think the rookie from Memphis, Dylan Parham, is going to start at guard when all is said and done. But I think you're going to see a lot of different packages, John.
Yeah.
Do
you think there'll be a passing?
They're going to play Waller outside a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that'll help them compensate for the wide receiver issue.
Waller might even become, in some sense, a wide receiver this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, former college wide receiver. Do you think there'll be a passing team? More of a passing team, Greg?
Well, given Josh McDaniel's background, John, I would say that they're not going to be anything as here's what we are. I think they're going to be game and opponent specific.
True. Just that seems like the strength of the team is the O-line, pass blocking, their backs as a group, probably better receivers.
I could make the argument the strength of their team is the run game.
Really?
Yeah.
And Jacobs? See, I've never been that impressed.
They got Jacobs, they got Drake. Zamir White is a good pickup in the 4th round. They have a fullback. You could make the argument, they could line up and run the ball. Yeah,
that is true. They're kind of like hard to pin down, really. I personally, though, at the end of the day, still think they'll throw it a lot. Because the defense is not going to be great. Just hope that Darren Waller can stay healthy. I feel like Adams will assimilate quickly. Does anyone else?
Well, there's two sides to that, John. When you say the defense is not great, one philosophy if you feel your defense isn't great is to shorten the game so the defense plays fewer snaps.
Yep. Well, they do get Chandler Jones, and they are going to have a nasty pass rush. That I know.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I don't particularly like the backfield. I think Jacobs he's just been so inefficient. Some of that is going to be related to the O-line. I just can't envision a scenario where this offense doesn't run through Adams and Waller and Hunter Renfrow. I just think
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you're wrong, Greg. I'm just saying that I think that we're going to see plenty of touches going their way. But Josh McDaniels is he's going to make up his own mind. So we'll see what he decides.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm not disagreeing, but I think if protection is a problem, and it could or could not be, that remains to be seen. Then that's because you don't have a passing game if you can't protect.
Yeah. But your point, though, was well taken, Greg, from the background here. I mean, it's not like Josh Jacobs can't get 27 carries, a couple weeks in a row, and he can run the rock, depending on the opponent.
Yeah.
But, I don't think we have anything else here. Do you like Zamir White quickly, Greg, as a potential, at least early down starter in the NFL in a year or two?
Zamir White's a really intriguing guy. I mean, he came out of high school. He was a 5-star recruit. He was the #1 running back. He's had some major knee injuries that he's come back from. He's an aggressive, physical, competitive downhill runner. I mean, he's powerful. He's got finishing traits. He doesn't go down easy. He gets hard yards. He's got good size. His 40-yard dash was actually still pretty good given all his injuries. I think, I don't know if he's ever a true foundation back in that sense, but I think if you do want to run the ball on a given Sunday, that you can give Zamir White the ball.
Okay.
I would add, before John, we move to the Chargers, just on White, a couple coaches I spoke to before the draft, as much as they loved him, loved the kid also, his story, what he's had to overcome.
Yep.
It's the injuries, some challenges, life challenges as a kid, a pretty amazing story. But one guy said to me, does not like the fact that he takes on so much contact. Like, he will not run away from contact.
Right.
He's just a grinder, got some great second ability to with his vision. But one guy who really knows the running back position well said that's one thing that he has a problem with. Just for guys that had so many injuries in his career, man, you don't have to take that you don't have to shoulder that guy. So this guy felt that he wouldn't have a long career based on the way that he plays.
Could I ask you a question, Greg? When you were watching Zamir White, what did you think about how he puts his head down and just looks at the ground while he's running forward, crown of the helmet forward at all times? What did you think about that?
Yeah, it's a little weird. I guess he's always run like that. That may be something you can't change. It was an interesting combination because he did that, and there were times he ran upright as well. So, look, he had strengths and he had weaknesses. There's a lot of reasons he's a 4th-round pick. I don't know. I don't think he'll ever be a feature back. I think he's always a complimentary back that in a given game, could he be, a guy who gets, 13 or 14 carries? Yeah. But I don't think, Wes, he's ever going to be the guy.
And then last but not least, the LA Chargers, who use their number 1 pick on a lineman, interior guy. I'm fine with it. Always okay with that. Not that they give a crap what I think. I like the Isaiah Spiller addition here, Greg. It feels like people are maybe dissing Spiller a little bit here. I know he might not be a 3-down back right out of the gate, but maybe I'm also just scarred from just watching Josh Kelly and Larry Roundtree and others. But I feel like over the last 2 years, they've tried to team Eckler with a bigger downhill kind of a back, and Isaiah Spiller's by far the best option over the last couple of years. Greg, is that fair?
And I think that's why they drafted Spiller. I mean, let's assume for the moment he beats out Kelly and Roundtree, then Spiller is going to get carries in this offense, John. I mean, because Eckler is a really good back, but he's cut out more to be what Kamara was in Kamara's first couple of years in the league, getting 160, 170 carries and being a big factor in your pass game, as opposed to being a back that's going to get 250 carries.
Yep. I'm already handing him 145 carries right now.
And you could be right. You could be right. I think and Wes, I'd be curious what you think. I think for what Spiller, what he is, he's very good at it. And the reason he's a 4th-round pick and not a 1st or 2nd-round pick is because there's no mystery to what he does. He's not going to be on the field on 3rd down. He's not a receiving back. Even though he didn't have terrible hands, you're not going to use him as a receiver. He's a big power back.
Yeah, I liked him as well. I think that John's right. I think that there was a narrative tossed around, and I think the majority have just taken it and run with it. I mean, this kid has put up some impressive numbers. Never had less than, I believe, 5.9 yards per carry throughout his career. And he was doing it against SEC competition. He's more of like a jump cut kind of guy. He's just bobbing and weaving all over the field. I love that. I love that movement to just get away from contact. It's something that would be great to have seen from Zamir White. I thought he had a nice jump cut as well. But if he couldn't jump cut past somebody, that helmet went down and he just ran forward right into contact. I thought Isaiah Spiller, and I liked his tape from his sophomore year a lot better when he was a little bit bigger. I think he was at 225, 230, and I thought he played a little more physical but he cut down to like 215 as a junior, and I didn't like his game as much. So I think when he gets to the Chargers, I think he's going to put on that weight. He's going to be a little bit more of a power back. But yeah, I mean, with Eckler though, I mean, you just need to fill in the gaps, and I definitely think Spiller can do that.
Yeah, I do too. I like Spiller's tape.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's a really good prospect for what he is. I mean, he's got feature, foundation, volume back traits, John. He may not be that guy in the context of their offense, but he's got those kind of traits.
I just like that. Look, it's more talent on the field with Justin Herbert. I mean, no offense to Kelly and Roundtree. They're just Jags here. I like Spiller, to Wes's point about the movement. Otherwise, we bring in Mike Williams, which is a buzzkill for Josh Palmer, who I love, and I think we all like him. But, I mean, we're good. Adam, the big question, I guess, would be right tackle.
Yeah, Storm Norton did a yeoman's job, but he's not a starter. They drafted Zion Johnson, which is a good, solid move for them. They've got 4 starters they know about. Depth is still a problem for them. That would be a major issue for me if someone got hurt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wonder what they're going to do at right tackle. Quite frankly, I'm surprised that they haven't done that. Let's not forget Gerald Everett in there as their flex tight end.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, and Parham's back, who's a giant. McKitty's there. We talked about
McKitty's actually got a lot of talent. It'll be very interesting to see because McKitty, when he came out of Georgia after he transferred from Florida State, he was not thrown the ball, but he was a 3rd-round pick because the athleticism and the movement is there to develop into a good receiver. So we'll see. I think McKitty, obviously they signed Everett, no question. They didn't sign him to sit on the bench. But McKitty, to me, is a fascinating guy.
So if you add all these pass targets, John, between Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, the tight ends, our guy Josh Palmer, who'll be a backup, Jalen Guyton, who's a shot play guy, and Parham, who's a giant in the red zone, and McKitty, who's Greg has been talking about. They've got a really good pass target group. We know they're a big balance situation. They like to be somewhat. And Spiller is the grinder. When they want to grind, carries out in the 4th quarter, a little bit behind Eckler. It's a pretty good offense. If they just get the right tackle solved, this could be really a fascinating offense with that quarterback.
Greg, and then we'll leave with this. Justin Herbert, 24 years old. He is. Justin Herbert, good hair. 24 years old. 24 years old in March. I don't know of any NFL quarterback who peaked at 24. So, I mean, that might be a little scary considering this kid should get better. Did you see progress in year 2? Maybe not, but he's been awesome from day 1.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a lot to say about Justin Herbert, John. I mean, the guy's really good. It's not likely he's going to regress. How
much better can he get, I guess, is the question.
He gets better in ways that we probably don't see,
right?
Because he's going to put up numbers,
right?
So that's what we see. But if you were to speak to a coach, I'm sure they tell you 5 things that we don't know about, and that we wouldn't be able to know about, and they would tell you those 5 things, and that's how he's improving. That's the way it works. But he's certainly going to put up numbers. It's not as if all of a sudden he's going to throw 15 touchdowns.
I think not to compare him to the GOAT, but Brady played a lot, got better. And then like year 6, all of a sudden, boom, he's putting up huge numbers. So I guess that's what we're looking at with Herbert.
Well, Herbert's put up huge numbers already.
I know.
In the big game. That's what'll make him the next throw.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean,
or he could reset the bar to what huge numbers are.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm starting to get the feel that he needs to be ahead of Patrick Mahomes as far as the arm talent. I mean, I just he's just, it's unbelievable what he's put on tape. And honestly, if it wasn't for the lack of rushing volume for him, I mean, he could potentially be the top quarterback in the league.
I mean, John, I guess what you're asking is, he threw 38 touchdowns a year ago. Is he going to have one of those years where he throws 50? Could he certainly do that? Of course he could do that.
100%.
I mean, but it's hard to say, oh, yeah, he's going to do that. That's my projection. Right. But he certainly could do that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's just weird when you look at a guy this young playing at such a high level. Like, geez, he could play 5 more years and he's still not even 30. So, I mean, it's a little frightening.
The AFC's got some pretty good quarterbacks.
Yeah. When he came into the league, though, you got to think Mike Williams really wasn't doing much. It wasn't until Herbert got there that that Williams took off. So I mean that speaks a lot to his quarterback.
Yeah. And I would also say to the Lombardi too. I mean, Lombardi did say it before the season, like Mike Williams is going to be unlocked, and he was.
And you got to give Joe Lombardi credit for his bounce back after in Detroit. He struggled. And
Yeah.
There's another chapter for his career which didn't go so well. They fired him during this first season, and then he comes in there. He's got to keep things going with Herbert. He's got to make sure Eckler gets his touches. We know how great Eckler was. Mike Williams also, we need to add, he stayed healthy. That's always a major key. It's so funny how that works out for Mike Williams when he needs a contract. He's on the field a lot. But this is a fascinating offense. I mean, John, you asked the question how good he could be. Herbert, how much better could this offense be? Could they take another step? Because they are super talented. If you go through the receivers, tight ends, and offensive line other than right tackle.
Yeah, just imagine next year if they, let's say, I don't know, get a good right tackle, end of round
Not
one.
a good tackle class, just to throw it out there.
It is or it isn't.
It isn't.
No.
It's bad. It's bad.
Well, sometimes it can be good a year later, like dudes
It's
come out of
true.
nowhere.
Very true.
Well, that's a wrap on this series. This was a good one today, finishing right on time. Hitting all the points, not belaboring it, I hope at least. Keep in mind, obviously, we're going to keep going here. Just stay engaged with us, fantasypoints.com, at fantasypts on Twitter, youtube.com/fantasypoints, PGA content for DFS, college football, Greg Cosell, and the rest of our prospect guide. I mean, it's all there, all kinds of stuff going on. So I'll wrap it here. Thanks to our guy, Ben Kukanis, working his ass off behind the glass for Greg Cosell and Adam Caplan and Tom Brawley and Wes Huber, Joe Dolan. I think Scott Barrett had to take off for him as well. I'm John Hansen. We'll catch you next time here at fantasypoints.com.